Welcome. Thank you for the positive feedback on my last video, which was about dissociation and an introduction to internal family systems. I plan on continuing that today. I got my little Who from Whoville ears on because it's kind of fun, but also as a reminder not to take ourselves too seriously, which I obviously don't. And we're also going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking about, my whole system is going to be talking about those young child parts of us. And if some of your parts maybe get activated by what you're hearing from me, just a reminder to take care of those young parts. And maybe this will make them laugh. I don't know. But what I want to do is get a little bit deeper into internal family systems, which, as I was talking about last time, we break them down into exiles, manager parts, and firefighter parts. And I forgot to say, I'm in my office. So those of you that used to come see me live, remember the little tree and my desk and all that good stuff. So maybe this will also help to increase those feelings of ventral vagal, where we're connected and know we're not alone, because you're not alone. And this place still exists. And someday, hopefully, we'll be able to start seeing each other here at the office. In the meantime, this will have to work. So we'll telehealth. Appreciate your flexibility with that. So breaking it down a little more specifically, exile parts are those very young parts. They're the parts that experienced the trauma from long ago, maybe not so long ago, but they're also holding on to the feelings associated with the trauma or traumas. And those feelings may be very negative, very overwhelming to the system. Pain, terror, fear, and lots of shame. Exile parts very much hang on to the shame. So sometimes if the exile parts aren't allowed, or the rest of the system doesn't want them to activate, they get increasingly desperate to share their story, to be cared for, to express, hey, me too, or this happened, but they're afraid to do so. And if you've ever felt like, oops, I said too much, or for no apparent reason, suddenly you're feeling more vulnerable or fragile, maybe even after a therapy session where you're talking about some of your trauma, that's what exiles do. They have a tendency to feel very fragile and vulnerable, because when they were little and things were happening, they were all of those things. So that's where the exiles are coming from. So I'd like you to just take a moment, kind of let that absorb. And if those exiles are getting a little activated, know that that happens. That's very normal. If there's trauma, and it can be a big T trauma where someone's life was on the line, your life was on the line, and it can also be little t traumas where maybe no one's life was on the line, but for the person it happened to, it was scary, or it was threatening, or it was very, very shameful. And those little t traumas can also do just about as much damage as the big T traumas. Sometimes I find that the big T traumas, where maybe there's sexual abuse that occurs, that's a trauma. But then when the person goes to tell their safe person, and they're not safe, and they're not listened to or believed, or they're blamed, that is an example of a little T trauma where their life isn't on the line necessarily, but that is so damaging, worse than the big T sometimes. So those are exile parts. Next in the system, in internal family systems, is manager parts. And those are the parts that are running our day-to-day operation. They're very vigilant about, we don't want to get hurt, we don't want to get rejected, we want to come off as in control, competent, good at stuff, knowing things, very well put together. They want to control situations, they want to control how things go in relationships or at work. You can tell it's a manager part if a person seems controlling or striving, always has to have a goal and do better and better and better. Maybe they're caretaking other people. That can be an example of a manager, to keep the exiles at bay. So the exile doesn't get activated, these manager parts step in to control the situation, and those are a number of strategies that they use. And then the final classification of parts is firefighters. And they have the same goal as manager parts do, which is control the exiles from exposing those feelings or that story, or to not feel vulnerable or shameful or fragile. And firefighter parts are the ones that will act out sexually, they'll act out with substance use, sometimes they self-harm, they come across sometimes dangerous, dangerous to self or others. They're the ones that can really get in trouble. They can get us, if the firefighters run the show, they can definitely get us in trouble and make matters worse. It's important to know, however, that these firefighters, even though they seem misguided and dangerous, they are actually trying to help the system. They're protective of those exiles as well. So those are the three categories, and the work at hand is to help the system know that it's safe today. Maybe not 20 years ago, but today, okay, things are different now. Thank goodness childhood is over. I can start to heal from these things that happened in my past. And the process, again, it's a gentle process. We can have a lot of fun with it. I hope in your journey, whoever you're working with or on your own, that you allow yourself those silly times. And sometimes it's hard to do that because that's very close contact with an exile part. So your parts may be like, oh, if I have fun and I'm silly and goofy, I'm either going to fall into the little kid who's going to get activated, or I might get too carried away and a firefighter might show up. So each person's parts are different. Each person's dynamics within them are different. But it's definitely a cool process to carefully explore those parts and how you can get them to play better together, maybe to understand each other a little better. The part that I haven't talked about is underneath all of these parts is our self, our soul, our spirit, and that is a very positive and internal family systems. I use a small book that depicts this, and there are all these very positive qualities that all begin with the letter C: confident, connected, curious, courageous, calm, compassionate. That's self. And we want to be able, very ventral vagal, we want to be able to contact self and know that these parts are normal and they're trying to help the system. So thanks again for your attention, and I hope this video helps you.